everyone. I think we'll start. Great to have you all here. Thank you very much for coming along to this SME for Labour event on how Labour can support hospitality SMEs. My name is Charlie Napier. I'm one of the vice chairs of SME for Labour. I also run my own comms firm, Atticus, and was a former councillor in Hammersmith of Fulham many years ago. Joined today by a star panel, which is fantastic, and thank you all for coming along. On my far left, we've got Kate Nicholls, OBE, who's Chief Executive of UKHospitality, who's very kindly sponsored this morning. And Kate will be, I'm sure, familiar to you, became quite the media star over COVID, as she was fantastic supporting her members and really pushing for help for them during the COVID crisis. So it's great to have Kate here. On my immediate left is Dalton MP, and a very new MP since February, MP for West Lancashire, literally just up the road from here, and she succeeded Rosie Cooper, so great to have you, Ashley. On my immediate right, Jessica Toale, PPC for Bournemouth West, and also, probably even more interestingly for us today, Councillor in Westminster City Council. You're one of the Cabinet Members for Heritage, I think, is that right? Bournemouth West, 10,000 majority for Connor Burns, I see. So if you win that, I think we'll know we're on our way. So it would be fantastic. And on my far right, Nick Durston, who is Chief Exec of British Bids and also CEO of the South Bank Business Improvement District and also South Bank Employers Group, but he can explain all of that in a minute. But thank you everyone for coming along this morning. I'm not sure I was expecting that this conference would be such a focus on sort of growth and business as well, which is, I think, probably very great news for lots of people in the room and lots of people at this end of the table too. And I suppose, the proof will be in the pudding, hopefully, for most of us when we hopefully have a Labour government in good time. But I suppose I'm going to open up the panel initially to ask the sort of really the obvious question, the exam question for now is, after all that we've heard so far from Rachel Reeves and others, what would SMEs in hospitality, are we feeling good vibes from Labour? And if not, what else do Labour need to do to persuade the sector that they are the right people to be governing the country? So if I start on my far left with Kate on that.
Thank you, and thank you for having us here today. I suppose if I just start with the sort of size and scale of the sector to help understand why hospitality is so important to helping deliver the government's objectives and the Labour Party's objectives. Why should they be prioritising hospitality? So the hospitality and tourism sector is a £139 billion industry in terms of revenue. It generates nearly £100 billion of GVA. Our ambition is to get to over £100 billion of GVA, which we can do with the right conditions of support. And it's forecast to grow 6 times faster than the rest of the economy over the next 5 years. So if you are looking for strategic economic generators of growth, jobs and investment, the hospitality sector is the engine of the economy, the foundation of the economy on which you can move, and also employs 3.5 million people. So to put it in context, our sector is bigger than automotive, aerospace and pharmaceuticals put together. 3.5 million people work directly, 1.5 million in the supply chain, and it's across all communities, all constituencies, all neighbourhoods across the UK. In terms of what we're hearing this week from Labour and the sort of measures that we're looking at, there's 3 key areas that I just want to focus on as to what the hospitality sector would be looking for, and why the hospitality sector is important. First of all, it's about what are the measures we can take to unlock investment in our SMEs, in our high streets, in our communities, because if we support the SMEs in the sector, and it is a sector that is 60% SME, then we will make sure that we've got investment in place. Hospitality creates places people want to live and work. We are at the heart of our communities. We employ people locally. Most people walk to work. And if you're talking about the sort of initiatives that are being discussed today on the main stage, house building on the grey belt, regeneration in new towns, then hospitality needs to be hardwired as part of the essential services to create that sort of heartwarming place to people want to live. In the decades that post the financial crash, we invested £10 billion a year in regeneration in our high streets, communities and town centres. So with the right support in place, we can do that again. And key for us there is rates reform, and we've heard a lot about that from the platform and on the fringes. We now need to work on the details. So the commitment is great. We need to work on the detail as to how we get that forward. And we have a key point where we would welcome support in the House of Commons. In the next 6 months, we are due to lose our rates relief, and we are due to see an index-linked increase in rates bills. So in the autumn statement, we're looking for support to make sure that that is continued to give us that breathing space ahead of rates reform, and we can perhaps touch on what that looks like, but there are ways that can be done. The second is about investing in the potential of our people. We employ 3.5 million people. We generated 1 in 6 of net new jobs last year, 500,000 jobs put on in our sector since the pandemic. These are good quality jobs in all parts of the country, and crucially they provide the first experience of work for many of our young people. So again, what we've heard this week about reform of the apprenticeship levy, investment in skills, incentivising small businesses to invest in the skills that they need, a big tick again in those areas, and also really welcome the commitments around not just the AI and the high tech and the green jobs, but also the foundational skills, the common transferable skills that people need, literacy, numeracy, digital skills that our sector is able to provide. And then the third one is about how can we boost growth. If we want to have investment in public services, then we need to make sure we've got economic growth moving and accelerating, and that we are boosting growth in the sectors of the economy that can deliver biggest bang for buck. And as I say, the forecast is that with the right conditions, hospitality can grow 6 times faster than the rest of the economy, which will mean that we add an extra £30 billion of GVA to our existing £100 billion, and we can generate over £55 billion of taxes. That's the current tax take that we generate. So 38% of our turnover goes back to the exchequer in taxes, which means we have the headroom to invest in the public services that we need. And the biggest area and the fastest way that we can generate additional growth in hospitality and give a boost to our SMEs in particular is through cutting VAT. We know it worked post the financial crash when Gordon Brown cut VAT. It stimulated the regeneration of the high street and hospitality-led regeneration. We know it worked during COVID, and that's the biggest single thing that could be done to accelerate growth and recovery in our SMEs. So 2 out of 3 already commitments from the Labour Party. We just welcome some commitments on the third. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Ashley?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, what do you reckon? You think you can get the VAT cut over the line with Rachel and
I'm not going to commit to that, certainly not today. I think, having said that, one of my big takeaways from this year's conference is that for the first time in quite a while, business and investment and the economy has been absolutely centre stage for the Labour Party this year, and that is a massive testament to the Labour Party that is that has changed and that is looking forward and committed to building a better Britain, and we know that has to be built on economic growth and economic success, and absolutely nothing comes without that. And then thinking about small businesses and particularly hospitality, as has been said, I became an MP in February, so I've done an awful lot of going around meeting businesses and organisations in my constituency of West Lancashire, and a lot of those businesses are hospitality businesses, and all of them are telling me very similar stories, which is, that during COVID, when things opened up, it was those businesses that people were flocking to first, because it was those businesses that were able to offer those safe opportunities to actually get out again. And then more importantly, as the cost of living crisis hit, it was those hospitality businesses that people turned to, because if you can't afford to warm your own home, actually going to the pub is less, it's about being able to see other people and keep yourself warm. But of course there was very little to no support to those businesses for providing what is essentially a community service. And a lot of our hospitality businesses are not just about selling you stuff. They are actually about creating the communities and the dynamic environments in our villages, in our high streets, that make these places that people want to live and work. And without those, then there's nothing to build on in terms of the wider economic growth. We're also aware that, you know, the Federation of Small Businesses have already criticised the spring budget for leaving businesses completely shortchanged. And I think what we've seen this week from our party, from the Labour Party, is a real recognition that businesses are struggling, just like families are, with the cost of living and particularly with energy costs. I haven't visited a single business or organisation in my constituency that hasn't told me that energy costs are a massive issue for their businesses and for their services. So obviously we're going to be looking at the energy costs, which is something that we want to take forward in terms of Great British Energy, and bringing those costs down and making sure that we've got more sustainable, self-reliant energy systems in the UK. Business rates is the other thing that absolutely everybody will talk to me about, and we've been talking about this for a long time. And you know, we have already said publicly that we are committed to scrapping the business rates system and replacing it with something much fairer, something that is based on the services that are being delivered, not just on your square footage, something that's based on actually you know, recognising the different challenges that high street businesses, for instance, have got over and above, you know, over those online businesses that don't have the same overheads. So we're absolutely committed to doing that and getting a level playing field for high street and community businesses, because of course it's very difficult to do hospitality online. So, you know, and we recognise that. Although I think we all know that some of our hospitality businesses showed some of the most amazing innovation during COVID about taking their businesses online and being able to sell in really new and exciting ways. In contrast, the government's rejected any calls for reducing VAT. They've provided short-term business relief, but obviously that's about to end. And so not only is that not a long-term issue, but it's leaving SMEs, particularly hospitality businesses, with a cliff edge, and people are really fearful about where we go. So we're going to cut business rates for small businesses, and that's going to include pubs. And we're going to be raising the threshold for small business rates relief to 25,000. So that gives those small and medium-sized businesses, you know, those discounts, and that's fully costed. So Rachel's not going to be jumping on me for announcing scary things. So all of those things are fully costed in the Labour plan. And we reckon that by doing that, we're going to save the average pub £2.6 thousand and the average restaurant 2.7 a year. So it's relatively small, but we reckon that that's going to, you know, really help people keep things ticking over. We've got a genuine offer to support small businesses, £7 billion voucher scheme, which we want to use to provide grants to businesses to invest in energy saving tech. So on the one side, we want to be making sure that bills are coming down and that our energy supply is far more secure. But on the other side, we recognise that technology can actually revolutionise the way, you know, the amount of money and the amount of energy that businesses are using, and we have to invest in that in order to support small businesses to make the best of that. What we've seen today, this week at this conference, I think, has been really notable in terms of the commitment to working in partnership with businesses, with workers, and with the Labour government. And we had Johnny Reynolds talking earlier this week about that the Labour government's going to put small businesses at the heart of government decision making, ensuring that small businesses are represented on our Industrial Strategy Council, because what we're about as a Labour Party and what we will be about as a Labour government is not just doing things to and for people and sectors and businesses and organisations, but doing things with you. Because we know that the answers to the really important problems that face our country at the moment are not all in the corridors of power, they're not all in the corridors of academia, they're in the communities that are living and breathing those problems and coming up with innovative solutions every single day. And we want to make sure that we put that kind of innovation, that knowledge and that expertise at the heart of government. And to back that up, we've seen our Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves pledging to put British Business Bank together to unlock some of that institutional investment to improve capital available to new and growing businesses. So it's all sort of coming together. I think what I personally find most exciting about the approach that we're seeing is this real recognition that nothing in a Labour government will act in a silo, because it's our growing economy that will allow us to have a healthier community, for instance, and it's healthy communities that we need in order to grow the economy. It's a circle, it's a bit chicken and egg, but we recognise that we have to invest in all areas to make sure that we're not only growing our economy, but we're doing so in order to deliver fantastic public services. That businesses and small and medium-sized businesses in particular are not just at the heart of our economy, but they are at the heart of our communities and the resilient communities that people need in order to thrive. So I hope that what you've seen is a real commitment to business and small and medium-sized enterprises and hospitality this week, and I'm really excited to see where we can take that further as we hopefully move towards a Labour government at the next general election to build the Britain that we need for the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Jess, what's been your experience, both in Westminster over the last few years, but also Bournemouth in particular? Presumably quite similar, and also, and do you think what you've heard from Ashley and out there, is that enough for you to be going on when people ask those questions when you're knocking on doors?
Yeah, listen, it's fantastic, and I'm so happy to be here, not least because I spent the morning with PPCs in seats like Derbyshire and Barrow-in-Furness talking about the defence industry, and I sort of had to say our economy is really different in Bournemouth, but you're all welcome to the Big Four conference if you like. So yes, hospitality is so important to the economy in Bournemouth. We're historically a Victorian tourism town. We have now a high proportion of the new economy in digital industries, but hospitality is so important because what we're seeing around the country, like many, many seaside towns, Bournemouth has really suffered under the last 13 years of Tory governments. We've lost around 2,600 jobs over the last 10 years in the area. And the town centre is a shell of its former self. Part of the reason I wanted to stand in Bournemouth is that I have such fantastic memories of the town as a child, and so do a lot of people who live there. But many haven't been to the town centre in 5, 6, 7 years because the offer is just so much less than it was. We've got 2 empty department stores, and actually this is where the West End and Bournemouth are very similar. Right. Oxford Street is in my ward in the West End. We've got 2 big empty department stores, both in Oxford Street and in Bournemouth town centre. And people are saying that they feel unsafe to go into the town centre. And that's a travesty, because it is a vibrant town. It is an amazing town with a huge community of innovators, creatives, small businesses who just want a leg up and who need a bit of support because they want to contribute to the success of their community. So I've been spending a lot of time with the hospitality sector and leisure sector in Bournemouth, and sort of 3 big things always come up, and it will be a lot of the same as what Kate and Ashley have said already. Obviously the financials, bills, rates, everything have gone through the roof. One business was saying they pay £3,000 a month on rent, £3,000 a month on rates, and £3,000 a month on their energy bills. They're only surviving because they can sell through things like the Deliveroo app, which take a huge chunk of whatever it is that they're earning. Another independent brewer told me their energy bills have gone up 6 times in the space of 6 months. They are independent, they can't command the kind of negotiating power that larger businesses can, and she has gone from a staff of 15 to just her. She brews the beer, she cleans the toilet, she serves at the bar, and she also provides counsel for the people who come in who are having a really tough time at the moment as well. So there's that side of it, and then of course VAT as well is something that's brought up all the time by local hospitality businesses in being a really unfair system for them. And on the other side of that financial equation, they have their customers being hit by the cost of living crisis. A local business told me they made 60% this summer of what they usually do, and so they don't know if they're going to survive the next 3 months because they take so much of their earnings in that summer period in Bournemouth as a seaside town. The second big issue that comes up is safety in the town centre. People are really, really worried about. We've had a bit of an increase in knife crime, a big increase in antisocial behaviour. It makes it a less attractive place to come as a customer. But businesses are also worried about the safety of their staff and are starting to worry about letting staff members go home even at 9 p.m. on their own, and are paying for taxis for people to get home and making sure they walk to the bus stop. And unfortunately, we've seen an increase in a number of attacks on people just going about their daily business. And the final thing is skills. There are very few ways to get formal qualifications in the F&B industry and hospitality. Big employers are saying people don't want to come out of university with 30 grand of debt and go into a hospitality job. The problem we have in the UK is that there's a huge perception issue around a career in the hospitality industry. And if you go to Italy, it's your life career to work in hospitality. In the UK, it's not seen as the same. And as one of the biggest private sector employers in the country, it's really quite shocking that there aren't those formal routes through further education. And visa fees have gotten higher. So if you want to bring a qualified chef over from the continent, it's very much more difficult to do so. So I'm really excited by Labour's plans to renew the high street because I think they have such a positive impact on the hospitality industry. Cutting business rates is so crucial for hospitality and retail more broadly. As Ashley said, it will really help small businesses, take that risk of getting a foothold in the high street and being a contributing member of their community there. And it is part of this kind of wider conversation that we're having about what do we want the future of our high streets to look like and what type of experiences go in there as well as what type of retail goes in there. The second policy that I think will be really crucial is giving councils the power to fill empty shops. It's really challenging. And unfortunately, there are some irresponsible landlords who value protecting their overall portfolio value over being a responsible member of the community in the towns that they own property in. So that will really, again, try to start to change the sense of vibrancy that there are in town centres and high streets. And the final policy I'm going to mention is Labour's policy to get 13,000 police officers back on the streets and tackle antisocial behaviour. Give police officers the power to deal with some of these issues that have just been left for too long and are making some of our towns and high streets feel like no-go zones. So the hospitality industry obviously has some of its own challenges separate from the wider retail industry. Obviously, Labour's plans to tackle the cost of living and put money back in people's pockets will have a real big impact. And I think that hospitality can be such a big part of this conversation about what the future of our high streets look like and what we offer in terms of a community strategy for places and things for people to use in those high streets. So I'm very excited about the programme, and I know a lot of hospitality businesses in both the West End and in Bournemouth are excited about the prospect of a Labour government.
Thank you very much, Jess. Sounds like it's all perfect. And once we have a Labour government in place, then we'll be on our way.
Sunny uplands, an era of renewal.
There we go. Nick, do you think that's going to be the case?
Well, what I was going to say is that I agree with everything that the three speakers have said, so it doesn't leave me with much to say. But I think it's been really, really fascinating to listen, obviously, to two politicians and also Kate, who we work very closely with on all sorts of levels, and has been an unbelievable ally, throughout the COVID pandemic. So my sense is that there is absolutely the focus on the right issues. I've got to say that. So I think that's really encouraging that there's kind of unity and there's conviction, from industry and with the political dimension. That's something that Ashley has referenced in terms of the theme of conference. So that is really, really positive. what I would say, in terms of thinking about the kind of issues that you'd want to hear, is very much around the what I call the sector-specific issues, and then the place-based issues. That's sort of how I see the interplay here. Hospitality, as we've heard from Kate, unbelievably important to the economy, but also, as we've heard from Ashley, to community life, to day-to-day life. And that's in our high streets, in our town centres, in our cities, but also in our rural communities as well. I think that's a really fundamental point to make here. So I think the sector-specific issues, for me, they hinge around two other key aspects. One, which Kate has touched on, is the fact that hospitality is part, and a vital part, because it drives other aspects of economic activity. So my day job, as Charlie's referenced, is that I'm sort of running two kind of business and employer coalitions on London South Bank. London South Bank, wasn't always the great success that you see now. A place that needed a lot of investment, a lot of coordinated activity to drive investment from the late 80s into the early 90s. That's the origins of South Bank Employers Group. So we're sort of in a way kind of, I use the word privileged because the journey that we've been on in South Bank over the last 30 years does give us a sort of an ability to look and say what's worked. And so with conviction, and with data and knowledge, we know that a successful hospitality industry drives other parts of the economy. So one that's really interesting thing to me about the new life sciences district that's proposed around St Thomas's Hospital is that, lots of people are going to be working in labs, so we need buildings that have labs. But when they've done sort of tests and certain experiments, they have a fair bit of downtime. So they need to go to the pub, and so there needs to be a pub kind of fairly close to these new high-tech labs. And it's just a really simple illustration of how these aspects of the economy literally live side by side, and they're fundamental to each other. So the way in which the hospitality industry sort of drives other parts of the economy is critical. The other aspect is who's behind SMEs. Often it is small. So when I say small businesses are often driven by passionate individuals who are entrepreneurs, but also investors, and we tend to forget that a lot of what you see on the high street is because someone's decided I'm going to set this business up, I'm going to kind of create something, I'm going to create economic wealth, economic benefit, jobs, and be part of that community. So it's often something we kind of overlook, is that at the heart of a really good hospitality SME is someone or a small team that's having to make all these difficult decisions. But for me, because they often get so bogged down in some of the challenges, it stops them being what they're absolutely fantastic at. It stops them being entrepreneurial. It stops them driving economic growth, economic wealth. And we don't want that. We want those entrepreneurs to be thinking about the next thing. Yes, absolutely. They responded magnificently and innovatively in the pandemic, and of course we wouldn't have wanted that. But if you apply that innovation and that ability to sort of think laterally and face almost any challenge, then they're the great advocates for a successful economy and an inclusive economy as well. So those are sort of thoughts around sort of the backdrop to this. But the sector-specific issues, no surprises, costs, and so the issues around VAT are absolutely fundamental. The skills framework is key. I absolutely agree in terms of ensuring that the skills framework is there to enable people to be able to employ, I think it was Kate who said, often very local people, so people who want that first job or want to return to work, hospitality is often the go-to place. So looking at skills framework that enables that flow of labour alongside changes to visa and the costs of visas in recognition of kind of international movement is key as well. I think also speaking to certainly some SME entrepreneurs that I know, a grown-up conversation about tax relief, so it enables sort of the right level of investment, would be really, really positive as well. So I think those are the three sector-specific issues that other speakers have referenced, so complete, join up there. I think the place-based stuff, though, is key, absolutely. Looking at where the high street, looking at where town centres are, but also, aspects of our rural communities are. So I do want to sort of reference another part of my role, which is the world of business improvement districts. So business improvement districts, very briefly, it's key to say that the Labour government brought bids, if I can use the acronym, in from the late 90s and early 2000s. So a bid is largely an American model, whereby in America business owners, the owner of the property, are charged a levy, and that creates a pool of funds that then gets invested in the area. What Labour did in bringing that model over to the UK was essentially to put the onus on occupiers. So most bids, the vast majority of bids in the UK, are funded by occupiers. So hospitality operators, others, and indeed hospitality businesses are a big contributor to bids all over the country. So 335 bids all over the country. That is a democratic process because every bid can only be mandated by the businesses that get to vote on a 5-year business plan. So it's all locked into the democratic process. And the key thing is that businesses recognise the value of this cooperative model, if you like, sort of creating a pool of money that gets invested back in the area. What I'd like to flag, so the key thing that bids do, bit of a generalisation, but a lot of the challenges are around safety, animating spaces, making places attractive, and ensuring that the nighttime economy is looked after. But the final thing is that the bid levy is charged on the business rate liability. So we'd really welcome a conversation from a British Bids perspective. Any changes to the business rate structure, it'd be really good to have a joined up conversation about what that means in terms of the income that bids then get because of the relationship to the levy and business rates. Sorry, Jane.
No worries. Thank you very much, Nick, and thank you all four of you. I'm actually going quickly back to Kate and just say, so you can respond a little bit of what you heard from Ashley and indeed Jess. Is there anything there that you sort of been missed out, or anything you talked about obviously VAT being a key bit, but anything beyond that?
I think it's been a very comprehensive run through of all the main issues, and I think there's broad agreement. We are in danger of a panel of being the worst panel.
Yes.
In that
Sorry, we'll go out to questions in a minute.
We are going to violently agree on all the issues that need tackling. I think the issue then is the devil will be in the detail, and Nick started to flesh out some of that. The way in which the business rates reform works, the way in which the apprenticeship levy and skills reform works, and how that impacts on SMEs. It's great to take more businesses out of business rates, but what does that mean for the people who are still in it? And how do we incentivise investment? And also how we ensure that we don't keep SMEs locked down as SMEs. I've never yet met an entrepreneur and a small business owner who doesn't want to grow and expand. They very rarely want to stay as sort of small businesses. So how do we make sure that we haven't created a cliff edge that becomes too big for them to overcome? So those are the sort of watch outs that I would say. But it is about a very positive start to the dialogue of all the issues that need addressing. How can we get more rapidly into the detail and into the weeds so that we make sure that if and when we are looking at a change of government, we're ready to go from day one. We've had promises of root and branch reform of business rates in manifestos since 2010, and it hasn't been delivered. It needs to happen as soon as practically possible. So how can we make sure as a business community we give you the detail that we need to take those further forward in all of those big challenges that have been identified?
Brilliant. Thank you for that.